Yeah, you better watch this channel. You better watch all the videos. You better watch every single one right here at Good Mic Work Commentaries. Do it. Do it now.
Hello, everyone. Welcome once again. Monday Night Raw review, this time for October 12th, 2020, and Night 2 of the WWE Draft, which just wrapped up a couple of minutes ago. And man, I am glad I was paying attention for this to write down my notes, because there was actually a lot going on here on the show. A lot of moving pieces, a lot of moving parts, a lot of convoluted, confusing stuff that WWE could have made a lot easier on themselves. And a couple of things on this show that really didn't make any sense at all, and a couple of the things on this show that was actually quite good. So this is actually going to be a pretty loaded Monday Night Raw, and I'm happy about that. This is the first Raw in a while that I can remember that I was actually, that had my attention for most of the show, because of the way they spread out the draft over 6 rounds over the 3 hours. So there was always something coming up, and there was implications in just about every match they had tonight. And there was a couple of things that was really head-scratching. The one thing I want to say up front that I cannot believe they did this after last week, after Ali reveals himself as the leader of Retribution. No mention of them at all, other than being drafted to Raw. The very brand they're trying to destroy drafts them. I would like an explanation on that. And after Ali becoming the leader and seemingly having a lot of motivation for doing what he was doing, didn't we all expect him to cut some awesome promo tonight? Didn't we expect the show to open with him? We didn't even see him. I don't know what they're doing. Anyway, night 2 of the draft, like I said, in the books. We had 6 rounds that took place on television. There will be a couple of more rounds later on, probably going on right now, or Raw Talk, or on social media, or whatever. So by tomorrow morning, everybody should be placed where they're going to be, and then there should be a small handful of free agents that WWE will just figure out later on. But tonight was a weird one. We had a lot of talent switching brands, and we had some champions moving around, and they have really confused the title history now with the tag team title situation, as if it's not confusing enough with what they've done previously during the first brand split, when they split off and had the WWF tags and the World tags. Then they unified those, and now it's the Raw tags and the SmackDown tags. Now they have flipped. I don't know how you're supposed to keep track of any of this title history. It's criminal what they've done to it. It's a shame, and it's now, I suppose I just need to make that plastic surgery appointment and get that boob job done, because I thought for sure that the reason they were drafting the SmackDown tags over there was to do what we all want, and realize, since they don't give a shit about the tag team division anyway, and since they split up 4 tag teams in the draft, why not unify those titles and just make it a floating championship, just like the women? Would be such a simple thing to do, and I think the fans would appreciate it. But no, they did the exact opposite of that, and they basically just swapped the tag team champions. So I just think that's really stupid, and they kind of paint themselves into a corner when they name title belts after the show that they're on. I gave AEW the same type of crap for naming their secondary title the TNT Championship. I'm like, don't name it after the TV station. You know, if you're trying to build a company legacy and lineage here in title history, this thing isn't going to be the TNT Championship 50 years from now. You could be on the Food Network for all you know. It could be the Food Network Championship. Like, I just think that you're purposely setting yourself up to change the title up. And if I'm just, I'm just kind of a traditionalist, and if I'm trying to build title histories and lineage and create history for my promotion, I want it to be as least confusing as possible. And WWE seems to make things as most confusing as possible, because what they did here just was completely nonsensical. And we'll get into that, and we'll get into some of the good parts on the show, too, because it was not bad. The extremely sexy segment with Bray Wyatt and Alexa Bliss showing up together, double sister Abigail-ing Zelina and Garza. That was probably the highlight of the night for me. And in terms of who moved, there was some interesting moves. But again, like I've said, ever since this draft crap started, it's meaningless to me. I don't have any faith in the draft. I don't find them exciting. I don't care who is on what brand. Never matters to me, because they can all just switch brands anyway. And then WWE proves it to themselves when they have a draft. Last week, they draft Seth Rollins to SmackDown on Friday, but here he is, the very first available Monday night. He's out there doing a farewell promo or whatever. This Friday night on SmackDown, you've got the New Day having a farewell match. They shouldn't have a farewell match. They got drafted to Raw. They're on Raw now. So you draft them, and then you immediately send them back to the other brand. What does that say about the validity of the draft? It's so stupid the way they do it. I've just never, and I've always shit on the idea of the draft, and I've never cared. And, you know, even though there was a lot of landscape that was changed here, in the long run, it's going to mean nothing at all. In some of these cases, they've moved entire storylines to the other brand. You know, the entire Rollins, Buddy, and Mysterio family thing just got moved from Raw to Fridays. That's it. So, you know, it's not going to change anything in terms of, you know, we'll have a few fresh matchups at first, but overall, in terms of storyline and, you know, how these angles play out and stuff, it's no different. If the lights are blue or the Thunderdome is blue or red, to me, makes no difference at all. So the draft's a mess. Tonight proved it even more. And we'll get into it bit by bit because there were some draft picks that made no sense. I think one of the very last picks in the draft tonight, or at least the one on TV, was Alistair Black. Picked after Peyton Royce and Nikki Cross, R-Truth. So many people. Elias, Lacey Evans got picked before Alistair Black. He was like one of the very last ones. Unreal. So, yeah, we'll get into the tidbits of this, and we'll go through the show piece by piece. Let me say hello to everybody that's been hanging out here in the chat and knock out the super chats that are already here. Barry, what's up? Your potatoes are so cold. I was venting the other night on Twitter because my job is very easy. Even though I have to deal with a lot of rich, snotty assholes, it's still, you know, overall I have a very kind of stress-free life, so I shouldn't be complaining that much. But some people are just over the top, and, you know, I'm a restaurant manager, and I was at work the other night, and in my 28 years doing restaurants, every time a customer has an issue with their entree, it not being warm enough or it not being hot enough, they always say the same thing. They never say, "Oh, excuse me, my dinner isn't that warm. Can you warm it up for me?" They always have to say it's ice cold or it's freezing cold. And this lady was like, "My potatoes are freezing cold." And I'm like, well, freezing cold is a little bit extreme. They're lukewarm. They definitely could be hotter, and we apologize. We'll take care of it for you, and I'll fix it right away. I'll be back in 30 fucking seconds. But freezing cold, Karen? Come on. So I was doing a little venting. Barry remembers. By the way, Barry has got a sponsored video coming up. It was going to be tomorrow, but I changed it to Wednesday because I was waiting for a new, so I'm trying to fix my lighting setup in here, and I had a light delivered today, so I didn't really want to record it the way the room was currently set up. So I'm going to record that tonight instead, give myself an extra day to edit it. So Wednesday morning or Wednesday prior to Dynamite might be a nice pre-Dynamite video. I'm going to do a review of Bound for Glory 2010, 10 years ago, just passed. I think the anniversary was on Saturday, 10-10-10. The big they angle, Jeff Hardy winning the title and turning heel and the whole shebang. At Bound for Glory, 10-year anniversary of that show. It was fun to go back and look at that because I barely remember any of that stuff. I remember bits and pieces of Jeff's run and, of course, what would happen to him at Victory Road, but never really kind of took a deep look at to what the storyline really actually was. So it was fun to watch that pay-per-view, and keep a lookout for that review on Wednesday. Georgie Morris, what's up, man? 0 out of 10, man. Appreciate the $5. So Raw is a 0 out of 10, of course. Bruce Pritchard went back to WWE. His podcast just keeps getting worse and worse. It's so lazy. What do you think? Be safe. I haven't listened to Something to Wrestle With in a while. Oh, excuse me. But I would imagine, if the podcast has gotten a little bit stale or maybe lazy, I'd kind of give them a pass on that. I don't know how Bruce is maintaining the podcast as it is. It might be a type of thing where he's like, all right, I'm going to do it, but I'm going to be barely there. Like Conrad's probably got to do all of the legwork, and Bruce's job is probably just to show up. But I haven't listened in a while just because I feel like, once Bruce got that big promotion and went back to WWE in general, I mean, he's going to be spread so thin and he's going to be so overworked and so, so much going on. And at his age, at that stage of my life is not a job that I would want to take on and add that type of stress, because I think stress kills you before anything else will. And you should try to be as stress-free as possible, and working side by side with Vince and being his lieutenant would be the last job I would want. I don't know if it's even advisable to take a role like that, but you would think that the podcast naturally is going to suffer because of that. But like I said, I haven't listened in a while, so I'm not quite sure. But if it has gotten worse, it's you can't really blame him. If Bruce wasn't there, I'm sure the podcast would still be kicking ass. there was a comment that I saw earlier that I can't find now. Dang it. Because I liked it and I wanted to shout it out. Anyway, can't find it now. Let's get into Raw, start talking about the draft and some of the matches here. There is a little bit of tidbit of news that was reported earlier on in today. Eva Marie apparently is heading back to the WWE and should be returning to television at any time. I kind of thought we might see her tonight. Apparently that is confirmed. All of the credible sites are reporting this. There was some rumors and talk of her coming back before, but what she's going to do, I don't know. You know, she was awful. I don't like her. I don't even give a shit about her at all. So what she's going to do now, I mean, she's just going to be in the category of the Lanas and the people that just don't do anything. And if she's coming back, it's kind of ironic that they just put Carmella in this gimmick when it could be very similar to what Eva Marie was. I mean, she seems, I mean, I could be wrong, but she seemed, at least back when she was already there, to be somewhat one-dimensional. So I don't know what else they could do with her other than bring her in exactly the way she was before, which is kind of what Carmella is doing. So that might be a good entry-level program for her to be in and probably get the best of Carmella, which would suck for her. So yeah, she's coming back. I don't care. I don't care what brand she's on. I don't even care at all. So I couldn't care less about Eva Marie, but apparently she is on her way back. So anyway, let's get into Raw. They did start off with a match. I think this past Friday on SmackDown, Stephanie opened up the show with the draft picks. But this time, or I'm sorry, we started off with a promo. We didn't start off with the draft. So we had Randy Orton coming out to the ring. And Orton was bragging about how he pinned Drew McIntyre last year. First time Drew has been pinned in over a year. I'm glad they at least mentioned that. And he basically said that he's going to take the title from him at Hell in a Cell and all that stuff. Drew winds up coming out and says, hey, didn't I tell you that anytime you're in the building, I'm going to beat the crap out of you or whatever? So he gets in the ring, fights off Randy Orton. Randy Orton goes away, and McIntyre kind of looks into the camera and hints that he's not done, and he's going to spend the rest of the 3-hour Raw hunting down Randy Orton and trying to kick his ass. So we knew it wasn't going to be the last of them for the rest of the night, and we'd see more later. I thought they would come out several times. I thought that was going to kind of be like what Austin and Brett did during that great Raw segment where Austin put Brett in the ambulance and the whole deal. You know, that was like a cut, I think at least 3 segments long throughout the 2-hour Raw. I thought they would do something like that here, but we just saw them in the beginning. They basically like bookend the show. So we'd see them later on. Stephanie comes out for round 1 of the draft. And it was kind of interesting right off the bat. Raw selected The Fiend. So Bray Wyatt is coming over to Raw officially. We wondered about that because he was scheduled to be on the Kevin Owens show last week. And we speculated about The Fiend and Strowman both coming over. So this wasn't a huge surprise, but kind of surprising. And, you know, because I kind of thought The Fiend had unfinished business with Roman Reigns as well. We saw Wobbly Walrus introduced into the Funhouse and all that stuff. So I thought there was still more to explore there, but moving The Fiend over to Raw, I think is actually kind of a good move. I didn't want him to go to SmackDown to begin with. I remember he went there when SmackDown went to Fox, and I thought he was just much better on Raw and looked much better with the red title rather than the blue. Raw also selected Randy Orton. Randy Orton was a guy that I kind of had pegged to be heading back to SmackDown because, you know, just given the stage of his career, I think he should make a play for the Universal title or at least be on the same brand as the Universal title so he can win it at some point. But maybe WWE still feels there's plenty of time to get that done, so they're going to keep him on Raw for now. And Raw also drafted Charlotte. So I almost forgot about Charlotte. But Charlotte will remain on Raw when she comes back. Raw has claimed her, and in round 1, SmackDown picked up their own champion, Bayley, and the Street Profits, the Raw Tag Team Champions. Here we go. Now, first of all, with Bayley, I really thought they should have drafted Sasha or Bayley to SmackDown or to Raw and made the Hell in a Cell match even that much more meaningful and important because, you know, the stakes are even higher now because whoever loses isn't going to get a shot, you know, to get the belt back seemingly. So especially if it was like Sasha going to Raw and then she won or something like that, you know, Bayley would have a lot on the line or she'd lose her SmackDown title to the other brand. So I think that could add some more to it. Not that you really need it, but I expected one of them to go, but they didn't. Bayley and Sasha will both remain over on Fridays. And like I said, they drafted the Street Profits. We thought they might do this, and I talked about this last week, that once they moved New Day over to Raw, I'm like, okay, they should unify the titles. How long have we been screaming for this? Now they've set themselves up for it again. They've even teased us with it, because didn't Nakamura and Cesaro show up on Raw a few weeks back and kind of challenge the Street Profits to a champion versus champion match or something? And I was like, oh, they should do that at Night of Champions, unify the titles. And then they didn't. Here they teased us again, and they screwed us over again. So this here is simply a situation where they wanted to swap the belts, but because they're idiots and they named the title belts after the show they're on, it made it look weird. It's like, you can do this with the Intercontinental and the US because they're different names. Doesn't matter. You can do it with the WWE and the Universal because there's different names. But when it comes to the women and the tag teams, you've named them after the show, which means when you switch them, it just messes it up. It just makes it so confusing. Like, what are you doing, man? So they did it here. Now they've got the Street Profits going to Raw, which, if you're looking at this in kayfabe, or I'm sorry, to SmackDown, if you're looking at this in kayfabe terms, SmackDown did do the right thing here because their tag team champions were drafted away. So they should replace their tag team champions with another tag team champion. That's the best they can do, right? You know, it's like, had Raw drafted Roman Reigns #1, they would have picked up Drew McIntyre #2. So the pick itself makes sense, but swapping these championships like that doesn't. So what they wound up doing, I even tweeted about this prior to it happening. I said, if they just switch the names, because I thought at this point the only thing there's left to do is just to swap the names and say, okay, now the SmackDown tag team champions are on Raw, so they're the Raw tag team champions now. And I joked about how silly that would be, but how it's really kind of their only option. 5 minutes later, boom, on TV, they're all backstage with Adam Pearce, and he's like, here's the only thing we can do. The only thing we can do is, they just basically handed each other, the two teams, Street Profits and New Day, handed each other their title belts and switched them. And he was the SmackDown tags are now the Raw, and the Raw tags are now the SmackDown. Just rename the belts. Name them like the WWE and the World, just like you used to do. Or name them the Universal Tag Team Champions. I know it sounds dumb, but it's better than, what they're doing. So maybe you got a WWE Tag Team Champions and a Universal Tag Team Champions. You can do the same thing with the women. That way, if you do want to switch your champions around, it doesn't look so damn stupid. Because at least now you don't have to explain this. They're giving themselves extra shit to explain. And AEW is going to find themselves in the same situation if one day they leave TNT and go to another network, with that damn championship. So I just think it's a dumb idea for companies to do that, and I don't know why they do that. And it made the tag team situation really stupid, and they probably could have even simplified it more if they wanted to. If they wanted to switch the belts somehow, they could have done it some other way. This just was just straight up silly. So that does it for round 1. Stephanie will be back here in just a little bit for round 2. Like I said, we had 6 rounds. The first match of the show was a dandy. It was a doozy. Man, a barn burner of a no disqualification match between Kevin Owens and Alistair Black. They beat the shit out of each other here. The spot of the match was Alistair Black hitting a Meteora on Owens through 2 chairs that were set up side by side. You think that hurt a little bit? Yikes. Went right through it. Alistair Black on the outside at one point. Black masked the ring post. That was a pretty cool spot. In the end, Owens gets him in the ring, hits a stunner, followed by a power bomb through the table for the win. 1, 2, 3. Bravo to both guys for really putting it all out there when they didn't need to. This was just a Raw match. They could have just picked their ass through the whole thing and been fine, but they chose to really put on a good quality match, and especially Owens, who's really been on a roll in terms of big quality matches. And I didn't really think he dropped 2 in a row here because he just lost to The Fiend on Friday. So to go down to Black here is not something I would have done, but I never like to see Alistair Black lose either. And just look how much his stock has dropped. Black is this guy that I still just have all this potential for. I think could be challenging in world title programs. He could be facing McIntyre or Roman or anyone, and instead he's drafted after Peyton Royce and Titus O'Neil. What a mess. Stephanie's back out after that awesome match to announce round 2. Monday Night Raw selects a bunch of guys here. They get Braun Strowman, which we kind of had a feeling about. He's been on Raw lately ever since the Raw Underground stuff was still around. So him coming over was not surprising. But again, here we go with this nonsense with the swapping of talent. Strowman now gets traded or drafted to Raw, but guess what? He has a Universal title match this Friday against Roman Reigns. Now, he's not going to win it, but damn, these drafts, what do they mean? What do they mean if when you draft them, they just go right back to the show the next week? Does that happen in baseball? Does somebody get traded from the Yankees to the Oakland A's and they say, oh, wait a minute, I want to play one more game for the Yankees first? No, you go. You fucking go. So just stupid. By the way, I just saw that Billy Beane is leaving the Oakland A's and going to basically leaving baseball and going to Boston Fenway Network or something like that to work over there. And he was instrumental in changing baseball. Made a whole movie after Moneyball, which is fantastic. Just saw that news on Twitter a little while ago. But, that's not the way it would work in any other sort of sport, I guess you would say. So I don't understand why, or somebody gets drafted in the draft, like I want to play one more game for my college team. No, it's not how it works. So that's a pretty good get for them and Strowman, even though we kind of knew he was coming. They also selected Matt Riddle, which is interesting because guess who just got drafted to SmackDown last week? Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins has been really open lately about how much apparently in real life he despises Matt Riddle and refuses to work with him. I don't know what's going on there or where that heat stemmed from, but it was enough to keep them on separate brands, I suppose. So Matt Riddle will be on Monday Night Raw now, along with Jeff Hardy. So we could see some more Matt and Jeff tag teams coming up in the future. So that's a pretty big get from SmackDown. I mean, they stole Strowman, Riddle, and Jeff Hardy. That's kind of a big deal. SmackDown will keep Daniel Bryan whenever he comes back to TV, and they picked up Kevin Owens. So Kevin Owens will be going over to Fridays now, and that puts him on the same show as Sami Zayn, which should be awesome. And now you're starting to wonder, speaking of Sami Zayn, where the hell is he? Why has the Intercontinental Champion not been drafted yet? Now, technically, Lashley was drafted pretty early in the whole Hurt Business faction. So they grabbed the U.S. champion. So what's taken so long for somebody to grab the Intercontinental Champion? Do they not care anything about that belt anymore? I mean, I kind of don't, but it's just kind of disheartening. If there was a draft in 1987, I guarantee a Macho Man Randy Savage would go way higher than round fucking 5 or whatever it was. So you started to wonder where Sammy was around this point. Next up, we had a segment with Miz and Morrison in the ring. Their guests are going to be Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke, who have kind of recently formed a tag team. They sent Mandy over to Raw in that storyline with Miz pulling some strings to get her traded, and she's kind of giving him shit for that and basically called him a dick for doing that and purposely screwing people's lives up. And and he says, Miz and Morrison both say they should be thanking the Miz. And he's like, come on, give me a little pat on the back. That was pretty funny. Lana and Natalya come out for some reason. A brawl ensues with Dana and Mandy. We go to commercial. We come back, and Miz and Morrison are still in the ring, and Miz has got a plan B because plan A broke down. All 4 women fought and left the ring, so he still wants to have a guest. So his guest is going to be his very own partner, John Morrison, who's sitting right there with him. And before they can even start talking, lights go out. Lars Sullivan's music hits. He just returned this past Friday and beat the hell out of Matt and Jeff. And he hits the ring, and Miz bails out, leaving Morrison all in there all by himself. And Lars Sullivan kills him. And we saw him on Friday. Stephanie said he'll be in the Raw pool. At the point of this segment, he had not been drafted yet. So he came out there and annihilated poor Morrison, and I'm surprised he even still has a job. This guy dodged a huge bullet with a couple of big issues he's already had. Prior to us knowing anything negative about him, he had the anxiety issues to where he kind of went AWOL or no show to show or whatever, and a lot of people were kind of worried about him, that he might have some mental health problems or some depression or anxiety or whatever. Just wasn't able to handle the big time, so they kind of gave him some room and gave him some time and worked with him and all of that. And then all the crap came out about him, all the revelations from years back of these very, very racist and homophobic message board posts that he was using under a particular name, and they're all released, and some of them are actually absolutely horrific. I don't care how young you are and how dumb you are. Nobody should be held accountable for what they did or said when they're 21 years old, but goddamn, some of this stuff was so ridiculous and so over the top. How can you ever really look at the guy the same way again? And then the video comes out while he's gone about, that really contradicts a lot of what he made fun of and claimed to hate in some of those message board posts, and here he is on fucking camera. So that was more hysterical than anything else. And he still comes back. WWE brings him back on Friday, and then just over the weekend after his return to SmackDown, it was revealed that he was harassing and making sexually explicit messages, sending them to a yoga instructor that he was chatting with first, and then started asking for boob pics and offered to pay money for them. And she wrote back like, look, I'm going to go ahead and block you right now. I don't tolerate any messages like this. I'm a happily married woman, and I think it's kind of dumb of you, given who you are and you're relatively well known, to do this stuff. And these are all released, and everybody, all the websites picked up on it, and it makes him just look like a horny fucking idiot. And I don't like him. I just something's always, ever since that first stuff came out, it's like I can't get past it, and he just looks dumber and dumber. And then this shit, you know, you'd think you'd learn your lesson here, like, holy shit, I dodged a major bullet, I did some fucked up stuff, and this company let me keep my job. Maybe I should cool it for a little while. Maybe I should try to keep my not make myself look like an idiot. Like, there's got to be something going on mentally up there that would make him think any of that is okay, or he wouldn't even be concerned about being caught or outed or anything like that, and he just looked foolish. You know, what he did was not against the law. It's just dumb, and it's borderline harassment. And to constantly, you know, solicit things like that just from women just randomly is sick and gross, and it's disgusting. So the hell with this guy. I was kind of hoping they would release him, but I guess they've just, like a lot like Velveteen Dream, they feel like they've just put too much investment in him. I remember hearing stories about this guy in the Performance Center years before he was ever on TV. Oh, there's this one guy there that's just like really impressive. He's got this big head and big hands, and he's fucking strong. And you know, WWE seems like they've really been grooming him for years, and maybe they don't want to piss away their investment. But sometimes, man, you got to cut your losses. This guy's got the worst possible reputation, you know, just like a Big Cass or an Enzo or somebody else that's just fucking annoying. But this guy's just gross. You know, like, what are the women in the locker room? How do they feel when they're approached by him? Their skin is probably crawling. Like, get this pervert away from me. So he probably has no friends in the locker room, and I can't imagine him having many supporters just based on the shit that we've heard about him. But WWE doesn't seem to care. They're going to let this one go too. They're going to continue to push him, and we'll see. And he would land on a show here in just a minute after the next segment. And so next up, that's when we cut backstage. That's when WWE does the title switching thing, like I mentioned earlier. We've got the New Day and the Street Profits there. They're kind of barking at each other. Pierce just says, okay, the only thing we can do is swap the titles. So they exchange belts. And just like that, presto chango, we've got new champions on both sides. And let me ask you this. Does this count against or for New Day's title reigns? How many have they won? Like, let's say, for example, they've won 8. Is this their 9th? I don't think so, but kind of it is, right? So how does that work, you know, in terms of record keeping? Not that records mean dick at all, but, you know, if it matters to anybody, like, how do they, you know, if you want to look back at New Day's career when they're done and try to list all their tag team accomplishments, where do you rank this one? And how does it all fit in? It's fucking silly. So anyway, they do that. Bobby Roode and Dolph Ziggler are also there, and they end up challenging and wanting a match with the now Raw Tag Team Champions, New Day, because now they've swapped titles. So New Day have the red belts. They say okay. Stephanie makes the match official right after that and says it will be New Day taking on Roode and Ziggler for the Raw Tag Team Championships. And just wait till like round 4, then it gets even nuttier. But here she is to talk about round 3 in easily the stupidest fucking pick of this entire draft. Raw drafts Retribution. Raw drafts the faction that has been out to harm them, that has caused damage, bodily harm, and breaking and entering and vandalism to their production facility, to their arenas, to their security staff. They have made their motivation known on social media that they feel wronged, and they are not going to rest until they absolutely destroy and murder this brand. And then you have a chance to get rid of basically a terrorist group coming after you, and you choose to draft them instead? Okay. I don't have any lithium on me, but if I did, I'd eat it or shoot it up or whatever you do with it. If you need me, I'll be in the woods. I don't know what to make of this. I don't know why this makes any sense. Like, if in Raw and SmackDown also are supposed to have like a little bit of like a brand rivalry. They always have, right? That's what Survivor Series largely is based on most years. Wouldn't you think that Raw would want to mess with SmackDown a little bit, you know, by not picking them or trying to get them sent over there or whatever? I don't know, but trying to, like, you'd think that Retribution would be a game where Raw just leaves them there. Like, if SmackDown gets the last pick or whatever, they leave them there till the absolute last moment, or make them free agents, or you would think that just neither brand would want to draft them. Why would Raw draft Retribution ahead of Sami Zayn or ahead of the Intercontinental Champion, a title holder that's sitting there on the other brand that they can take, and instead, this faction that's been terrorizing their entire brand and putting people's lives in jeopardy, they draft them. Okay, whatever. And then after that, Raw also gets Keith Lee, and right behind The Fiend, they draft Alexa Bliss. So I'm glad that she's following The Fiend over there, because they're onto something there with those two. I think it's really good. So I'm glad that they're making her make the move as well over to Raw. And then in the same round, at the end of round 3, SmackDown would pick up Lars Sullivan, who we just saw come out and annihilate a couple of Raw guys. He will be on SmackDown, so I don't know why they even needed to bring him out tonight. They just wanted to. And they are going to keep Baron Corbin. So Corbin is going to stay over on SmackDown as well. After that, we get the recently drafted Seth Rollins, who just got drafted to SmackDown on Friday, coming out for his farewell promo for the Raw audience. Like, we need that. I don't understand what the point of that is. And he's out there bragging, and he's talking about how huge of a loss this is for Monday Night Raw and how clearly no one can fill his shoes. And I thought for sure we'd see AJ come out, but we saw Jeff Hardy come out. Jeff Hardy came out instead. Seth kind of starts to leave, even though he ordered Jeff Hardy to leave first, and Jeff's like, no way. Seth starts to leave, and out comes AJ Styles. He was also drafted over to Raw as well. And him and Seth kind of give each other a little fist bump at first, and then AJ was like, keep on walking. This was never the Monday Night Messiah anyway, or some shit like that. So that was pretty good. And Seth kind of looks back at him. He's like, what the hell did you just say, dude? And that was nice. I like that. Seth immediately turned around, followed AJ to ringside, and kind of got in his face a little bit. And Jeff then dove over the top rope, took them both out. I think he gets on the mic and then proposes they do a triple threat tag team match. Did you notice that? Even when he said it, I'm like, what the hell is Jeff talking about? Triple threat tag team match. Just triple threat match is all he wanted. So we go to commercial, we come back, and the match is on Jeff Hardy versus AJ versus Seth, which on paper is pretty good. And I kind of like this here because I thought, it would either be a win for Hardy and AJ, because every time someone is leaving a brand, they lose. Or at least in most cases. That might not be the case for the New Day this week. They might actually win their farewell match. But everybody else, if you notice, like Alistair Black, probably Braun Strowman this week against Roman. Rude and Ziggler, as we'll see here later on. Miz and Morrison last week. You're always losing on your way out. So you knew Seth wasn't going to win this thing, but I didn't expect to see the return we got right in the middle of the match. A pretty good one. That is, Elias shows up. Elias shows up with the guitar. He blasts Jeff Hardy. He goes down. AJ gets the pinfall, picks up the win. And just like that, Elias is also back. So we've seen some returns with Lars Sullivan and now Elias. I'm glad he's back. I hope that he does a little bit more than my biggest problem with Elias before was that every week he just did the same thing. He's either in a match that means nothing, or he's in a promo where he's going to play a song and then someone interrupts him. So here he interrupts the triple threat, allows AJ to win. He's interviewed backstage later on, and he said that next week he's going to give us a concert, something that we've all wanted to do and go to because nobody can go to concerts right now. So he's going to perform for everybody next week. So he might just fall right back into that cookie cutter segment that he's in every week. I play a song, somebody interrupts, we have a match, rinse and repeat. I mean, that's all literally they do with the guy, despite the fact that he's got a great look. He's capable. He's very good on the mic and a good singer, and he can do probably more in this role if you just weren't so lazy with it and just did the same thing. Like every single one of his concerts is like an episode of House. It's the same thing every time. Really sick patient, and can't figure it out. Oh, I figured it out. Oh, I'm wrong. Oh, shit, he's going to die. Oh, we just figured out the cure right at the very end. With 1 minute left in the show, he's going to be better and his family's happy and all that. So it's like it's every single time he's out there. So next week we'll see what he's got to say since he attacked Jeff Hardy here. That tells me that's going to be our first little program there for those two. And when Elias is playing his songs next week, Jeff Hardy will come out and attack him. We'll either get a match right there or we'll get it announced for the pay-per-view. One or the other is my guess. After that, Stephanie is back out there for round 4. And right off the bat, Raw picks up the just returning Elias. So Raw will keep Elias. And Lacey Evans, they've also taken from SmackDown, so that's kind of interesting. I don't think it's going to matter in the long run, but Lacey has jumped, and so has Sheamus. So they picked up Sheamus as well, and Sheamus is another guy that again is drafted, but he's going to be on SmackDown on Friday because I believe he's teaming up with Nakamura and Cesaro against the New Day, I think. So what does this draft really mean, guys? You know, slapjack is money. I agree with you, Sonny, man. Over on the SmackDown side of round 4, they pick up Sami Zayn, so they finally are drafting the Intercontinental Champion. It took them till round 4 to do that. Cesaro and Nakamura. So they're going to keep that tag team over there, and they do retain the Intercontinental title over on the Blue brand, which makes the most sense, but I also think Sami should have gone way earlier than this. He should have gone on round 1. He should have gone on night 1 for that matter, but if anything, you know, this should make for some pretty interesting promo fuel for Sami Zayn because he's the exact type of character that I don't expect to ignore this. Next time he gets a mic in his hand, he's probably going to be like, yo, WWE, WTF, round 4, are you kidding me? Look at this belt. What is this belt called? You know, who's the first champion? How long does this title go back? And you're treating it like this? Assholes. After that, we get the tag team match between Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville taking on Lana and Natalya. They beat Lana and Natalya, of course. Very bad few weeks for Lana. She's been put through a table every single week. And now it looks like this 7-week-long run that Natalya and Lana have had is also coming to an end. They have now split these two up after the match. Natty is pissed, kind of degrades Lana a little bit, gets on her about a couple of things, and then just leaves, and Lana's all devastated and shit. So here I thought it was actually a good thing for both of them to do because I feel like both of them are so ridiculously worthless individually that you might want to just put them together and create a tag team, and who knows, maybe you can slap together two people and they turn into the female New Age Outlaws. But they didn't even give them a chance. I don't know how many weeks they were together. It wasn't long at all, and they've already split them up. But that issue would not be done as well because we'd see them in the main event, and the plot would thicken. Backstage, we get a promo with the Hurt Business and Ricochet again, and Ricochet proposes one final match. I'll believe that shit when I see it. And he talks to all 4 members of the Hurt Business. He goes, I don't care which one it is. I'll take you on one-on-one, one final match. And if I win, then this is over. It's squashed. We never have another match again. Leave me the hell alone. And if you win, I'll join the Hurt Business. So that's a pretty ballsy move, you know, from a character standpoint if you're Ricochet. And Cedric immediately jumps right up and volunteers. He's like, hell yeah, I'm ready for this. I'll take you on. So he agrees to the match. That would come later on. Next, we had Andrade taking on Angel Garza, former tag team partners, now split up. Garza, I believe, was drafted to Raw. And Andrade hasn't been drafted yet. Is that what's going on there? So they were kind of facing each other one-on-one. Zelina was on commentary for this, a little bit conflicted, even though it feels like she's largely backing up Andrade. Garza wound up winning basically clean with the wing clipper here. That was a little bit surprising that it was that decisive, but I'm fine with it. I like Angel Garza. I think he's awesome. Curious where this is going to land Andrade now and what he's going to do. But right after the win, this to me was the highlight of the show. The lights go out. It's kind of interesting how Retribution and The Fiend kind of have similar deals now. It would be cool if those two come face-to-face at some point. But the lights go out, red lights come on, and you see Alexa Bliss in the corner doing the crab pose, like the bending back crab pose that Bray Wyatt does. And then I think they go out again. They come back on. Bray Wyatt is now, or The Fiend is standing behind Angel Garza. He puts the claw on him and then grabs him in Sister Abigail position, and Alexa Bliss comes up behind Zelina and puts her in Sister Abigail position, and they hit double Sister Abigails, you know, with this great stare down between the two of them. Brilliant camera shot that I had to make on the thumbnail here, which I thought was great. And Alexa knows how to hit that move. Every time she's applied it, she's done it really well. She's done it on the floor a couple of times. It's looked really good. Every time she's done it in the ring, it's looked great. And here, you know, hitting it perfectly, you know, in tandem with Bray Wyatt was pretty rad. And I like that segment a lot. So I'm glad that they're on Raw. Will be interesting to see what they do there. And I still don't kind of really know, are they faces, are they heels? What the hell's going on there? But that was fun stuff. So welcome to Raw, Fiend and Alexa. That should be fun. After that, we get round 5. So Steph is out there for round 5. I thought this was the final round. They actually did one more here. But Raw in this round would pick up Nikki Cross. So Nikki is also going to be moving over to Raw. I guess they want to continue that whole deal with her and Alexa Bliss because They are supposed to be friends, but Alexa is kind of demented right now, so who knows, but they want to keep her over there with Alexa, so that's cool. And Raw is also going to keep R-Truth, and also they're picking up Dabba-Kato, who we saw in the Raw Underground series there, and he should be making his debut to TV as well. A lot of big beef on Raw with Strowman coming over, and you got Keith Lee there, and now Dabba-Kato. Yeah, we got some big guys, and Big Show in and out when he wants to be. Bobby Lashley, lots of big dudes over there. A lot of beef on Raw right now. And here's a weird one. At the end of round 5, SmackDown would pick up Robert Roode and Dolph Ziggler and Apollo. So Apollo Crews, finally his issue with the Hurt Business is over. They are sending him back to SmackDown. I think he came to Raw from SmackDown at one point. He's back over there now. Just get him away from the Hurt Business. He was on Raw for the entire time he was there. He only worked with the Hurt Business, and now he's back. So that's probably a good move for him. But then I think about Roode and Ziggler, and I'm like, okay, what are you? They have a match later. They have a match later with the New Day, who are now the Raw Tag Team Champions, who used to be the SmackDown Tag Team Champions. What if Roode and Ziggler win here, and they're now taking the Raw Tag Team Championships, which used to be the SmackDown Championships, to SmackDown, and if they just wouldn't have changed the name, they would have had the correct belts over there. You see what I mean? But they weren't going to win here anyway because, again, they were drafted, so obviously they're going to go out on their backs here. There was never a threat of them actually winning the titles, which to me is almost even more lazy that WWE doesn't care enough to even make the fans think that there's a chance that they can win the titles. It's a title match. It's a title match on your show. You should at least have some sort of doubt, but when you do something like that and you've already switched the names of the titles, you should have done it. Basically, the segment they did with Adam Pearce backstage, they should have done after this match. Doing it before made it even more stupid, as if it wasn't stupid enough. You can't get any stupider than what they're doing here. It's insanity, complete insanity. So anyway, we knew they weren't going to win, but still, the fact that they just booked this way, when they can't figure out simple booking, why do they just make life harder for themselves? Why do they make things more confusing when it could be so much simpler? And you can maybe apply your energy to shit that actually matters than trying to, figure out and untie this giant knot that you've made in your creative and stuff. So anyway, the match happens next. Pretty good match. New Day retains, of course. They just won the belts back a couple days ago. They are not going to drop these things right now. And Roode and Ziggler will be heading over to SmackDown. So it's a moo point, as Joey Tribbiani would say. It doesn't matter, but it made no sense the way it was all set up. You know what I mean? Fucking stupid. So anyway, after that, we get the Ricochet and Cedric match. Another highlight of the show here, just like the Alexa Bliss and Bray Wyatt double Sister Abigail. Ricochet pulls an Eddie Guerrero. Eddie Guerrero just had a birthday a couple days ago, and we're coming up on the 15-year anniversary of his death next month, which is nuts. Shout out to my friend Colin Sturcio. He's a great supporter here. I did a little Zoom call for him today, or with him today. He interviewed me for a class project, and we talked a little bit about that. So shout out to you, man, if you're listening. But Eddie was probably looking down, smiling here, and Ricochet does the old chair thing because they got that stipulation here. If he loses, he's got to join the Hurt Business, and I really didn't want to see that. I hate it when people are, it's like how John Cena joined the Nexus and stuff, and they've done other things like this in the past before, where if you lose, you have to join a faction. Like reluctant tag team partners, joining factions reluctantly. Brian Pillman having custody pretty much over Terry Runnels right before his death. No, most of the time those type of storylines don't. I don't like them because they're dumb. So Ricochet joining the Hurt Business for guys that hate his guts is not something that it just would be stupid. You know what I mean? So he pulled an Eddie Guerrero here. A chair was brought into the ring. Referee had his back turned. Ricochet kind of bangs it on his own head and then tosses it right over to Cedric and then falls down, clenching and holding his head. And the referee sees that. He hears the chair shot and he sees Ricochet down and he sees Cedric holding it, calls for the bell. Ricochet wins via DQ, and his issue with the Hurt Business, according to the stipulation anyway, is over. But no contract was signed for this, so if the Hurt Business wanted to beat the shit out of Ricochet next week, they could. What would happen if they did? So I'm not really sure if the stipulation will stick, but at least for now, that might be the end of Ricochet and the Hurt Business, and I sure hope so, man. My God. Ricochet's a guy, I thought there was going to be some NXT talent mixed in here. I guess not. I thought the Garganos were going to be called up, and we didn't see any of that unless it happens unless it happens right now on social media or something. But I kind of thought we'd get like Johnny and Candace coming up and maybe send a guy like Ricochet back to NXT. But we didn't get any of that. I thought for sure we'd have 3 brands involved here. After that, we get round 6. Stephanie is out once again to announce the Raw and SmackDown picks. Raw gets Titus O'Neil, Peyton Royce, and Akira Tozawa, which are, now we're just kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel here a little bit with those 3. And then SmackDown picked their very own Carmella, who they just brought back and repackaged as this untouchable gimmick, which now might have to come face-to-face with someone like an Eva Marie if she's coming back. And finally, they pick up Alistair Black. Now, Tozawa was the final pick of the round, but Alistair came right before him on the SmackDown side of things. So Alistair was the second to last television pick in the entire draft. I mean, just digest that. People like Carmella, Peyton Royce, Akira fucking Tozawa, Titus O'Neil, Nikki Cross, R-Truth, Lacey Evans. All these people were picked before Alistair Black. That's messed up, man. Anyway, so that rounds out all 6 rounds there. And we would get, I guess we'll have to look online here after the review to see where everybody landed. If anybody has any updates, feel free to hit us with them in the comments here so we can read who else is going where. And all that did was leave us with the main event. The main event was going to be a double. Here we go again. It was going to be a double branded battle royal to determine Asuka's new challenger for Asuka's title. She comes out there to sit on commentary for a bit, but she leaves. And here they are again with this situation. Like, what if a SmackDown person were to win this title or win this battle royal? Then, like, Jesus, man. But luckily that wasn't going to be an issue. Everybody's in this. Nia Jax, really kind of asserts her dominance early on. Her own tag team partner, Shayna Baszler, would actually dump her out. And I believe, anyway, correct me if I'm wrong on that. And Lana, again, I think it was the 4th week in a row or the 4th week that she is Samoan dropped by Nia Jax through the table on the outside of the ring. So she goes through a table again during the Battle Royal. They all get back in the ring. Everybody gets tossed out. By this point, I'm getting ready for the stream, so I'm not really paying attention to who's going out where. All I know is Natty is in there all by herself, and she seemingly wins the Battle Royal. But Lana got put through the table on the outside of the ring. She was never eliminated. She scurries back in there at the very end, dumps Natalya out, and Lana wins the Battle Royal. So that was kind of cool, the way she was kind of shit on by Natalya earlier on in the show. Now she wins the Battle Royal, and Lana, of all people, is going to get the title shot against Asuka. Okay. During the match, they cut backstage to Randy Orton and Drew McIntyre. Drew finally found Randy Orton, so they were brawling. So that told you right there. And then they went to commercial. So that told you right there that was going to be the show closer. Because when the Battle Royal was the main event, I was thinking, it was just a quick thought in my head. I didn't think it would happen, but I'm like, if this Battle Royal is the main event, they're just going through a draft, putting a lot of new talent, really shaking things up with the brands, and then they're plugging and promoting next week's episodes as the season premieres of Raw and SmackDown. This should be a good place to bring back a return. Somebody coming out in the Battle Royal, and what better person to bring back than someone like a Ronda Rousey? So I kind of was hoping that Ronda would show up. But once they cut back to Orton and McIntyre brawling, I'm like, nope, that's it. It's going to be, they know you can't close Monday Night Raw with Lana winning a Battle Royal. It's got to be something else other than that. So I knew that we were probably going to get a lackluster winner, and then Orton and Drew would close out the show brawling. And that's exactly what happened here. Once Lana won, Drew and Randy, I think they wind up hitting the ring, and they're brawling with each other and fighting and all of that, and the show goes off the air. So like I said, there was a lot going on. There was oh, my cat is throwing up. There was moving pieces left and right here. But overall, we didn't see anything too out of whack, and some of the stuff just made no sense. You know what I mean? And like I said at the beginning of the podcast, no Ali. Where the hell was he after last week? And shouldn't he have some explaining to do? So shouldn't WWE want an explanation from him? And they're even drafting this faction without even knowing that explanation. So I thought him coming out, at least opening the show and explaining himself and having a chance to really, cut a bombshell promo and make everybody take notice. I think that's what you should do the very first week, is to capitalize on that. But, they didn't. We didn't even see him at all. So I guess they're just holding that off for next week. But again, That made no sense. If that's what you were going to do, I would have also held off his reveal. There was no reason to reveal him last week. You could have done this after the draft. You could have continued the same old Retribution crap. They could have even been drafted tonight, and then next week or the week after, or maybe, next week on the season premiere, kind of a big episode that you're touting, maybe do the reveal there, and then he can explain himself the week after that. But instead, it's just all out of, it's all out of whack. They don't think anything through at all. Literally nothing. My God. Anyway, that is the end of the Raw results here. So let me cruise back up here, knock out some super chats, and we'll talk, we'll discuss and see what you guys think about all this nonsense. Good to see how Wheezy in here. Appreciate the $5, dude. Was watching Raw Talk, Natalya riots to SmackDown, and Lana to Raw, along with Rick Moss and Arturo Ross. Okay, thank you for that. All right, that's big. So I was wondering about Arturo. He did land on Raw with Riddick Moss and Lana. Okay, so she's staying, and Natalya is going to be, so I guess that's why they did the split with him tonight, so they can move Natalya on. They probably would be better off being at odds there. So Natalya to SmackDown, which is probably okay, and the riots to SmackDown as well. That's interesting. So it's going to be Ruby and Liv, both to SmackDown, huh? Let me go over to WWE's Twitter page here to see if I can follow along. All right, so that's somewhat interesting, and I'm sure there's going to be a free agent list, people left to be drafted. Man, even though I bought this new light, I've got myself pulled up on this screen over here, and I don't look nearly as bright as I do right in front of me. I think I still got some work to do on my my lighting issues in here. Okay, thank you for that, Andrew. The stuff with Seth and Riddle came from after Survivor Series last year. From what I heard, Riddle's wife took a personal shot at Becky. Interesting. I wonder why Riddle's wife would do that. What she got against Becky? Oh, hey, buddy. All right, look, you just throw it up. Okay, I got my cat right. You guys want to say hi to Bub? Say hello. Jump right up in the lap, but he just threw up. I actually had to take him to the vet a couple days ago because he was throwing up a lot, and he got better for a few days, and now I just saw him throw up again. So, old man, old cats. Anyway, I agree with Anthony. I've said that all along. I think Ricochet going back to NXT and be a part of that North American title hunt would be great. I'd love a Ricochet and Damian Priest match. Hell yeah. That would be good. Giving the Battle Royal to Nia or Shayna, I'm surprised they didn't do that. I think maybe the only reason they didn't is maybe they want to hold off Asuka facing one of those two. But yeah, if they did that, you're right. That would really increase, an already extremely thick tension within the team. They hate each other. So if you now have one of them's got a title shot and then the other one's going to be pissed and jealous that they don't have the title shot and then claim that the other one doesn't care about the team because they're too worried about the shot, that could add a lot to it. Solid Monsters talked about the stuff with Riddle's wife and Becky. I don't even, if I read that story, I've totally forgotten it. So I didn't know where the heat came from. But it definitely didn't seem kayfabe, the way Seth was talking about him. So, they still have this. They're still in the same, even if you're not on the same brand, you're still seeing each other. You got to still be interacting. I'm wondering do they just go the whole time backstage, not saying a word to each other ever? Have they not tried to squash it at all? That's crazy. Maybe they have, if this is a story that's old, maybe secretly they've squashed it. And this could all be a part of a future match down the road, especially if they're separating brands right now, I think that would be pretty cool. Like Seth just taking little digs here or there. Maybe Matt Riddle can say something back. And then when you get to WrestleMania time, you do Matt Riddle, Seth Rollins. This whole thing is a fucking work, and that's what can work in wrestling sometimes, especially when there's a real personal issue. If I was going to squash it, I'd be like, look, let's not tell anybody we squashed it and let's just continue it. And then when it builds for a match, people might think we're really shooting on each other in there. So they could be doing that too. And especially now that they're on not the same brand anymore, by the time you get to WrestleMania, you can make anything happen and do a one-on-one. Riddle versus Seth for the Intercontinental title or something, Yeah, Riddle might get lost on the shuffle on Raw. You might be right, but I also think he was already lost in the shuffle on SmackDown, kind of. And I think based on everything that's going on right now, he's got a couple of lawsuits going and some allegations and everything. WWE might not be, they're going to keep him on TV, but maybe no championships and no major storylines for him right now until they feel better about that stuff or it gets worked out or it blows over or whatever. Maybe just being on TV in matches. treading water, so to speak, as I like to say, is all he's going to be doing until things get better and he can move, into something a little bit more important than what he's doing. Yeah, there's Colin. I know, 15 years. You kind of pointed that out to me today. I was like, shit, I guess, yeah, it's been 15 years. I remember the morning waking up and reading it on onewrestling.com and just seeing it and just being like deflated. I almost got a little bit mad, turned the computer off, and I went and ran some errands. Didn't even think about it for the rest of the day. Just like, here we go again, fuck another one. And that kind of got me a little bit turned off on wrestling for a while. I remember watching WrestleMania 22 and still following a little bit, but the days of me watching Raw every single week were over. As a matter of fact, I have something interesting. If I can see it from here, I think so. Pretty sure it's in this little tiny sleeve here. When Eddie died, yeah, these are it. So when Eddie died, I made DVD copies of both shows, of the Monday Night Raw episode. So that would have been November 14th, 2005, the whole Eddie Guerrero tribute episode. And then on Friday, I did the same thing and recorded the entire SmackDown broadcast on the 18th. So I've had these ever since 2005. These are the same discs. I just recorded them both, and I've kept them both inside the same DVD case. Even though I have all my content digitalized, I still like hang on to these two, DVDs, and I kind of put them separate. So yeah, it's been 15 years, and Colin had suggested that I do a This Day in History episode on Eddie Guerrero and his death, and I think I will. I got a month to do it. So I did one for Owen and his and the 20th anniversary of his death. So I think I'm going to take him up on that idea and get that done in the month of November. So we'll have an Eddie Guerrero video coming up. In the meantime, I did do a review of his DVD a couple years ago that's on my channel. But the only thing I didn't like about his DVD is I felt like, a lot like the Vince McMahon DVD, I felt like it's glossed over a lot of stuff with his career and did not talk about nearly as much as I would have if I was doing like a full review or a retrospective on his career or something like that. But that's up there if you want some Eddie Guerrero content prior to my my death video, I suppose, that I'm going to do next month on Eddie. Oh, man, Brandon Flores, you missed a lot of special stuff on Raw. I don't even know where to fill you in. Corey, how long do burn DVDs last? They last forever as far as I know. I can pop it right in the DVD player and it'll play. I'll never need to. I just have it already digitally, but it works. Oh yeah, thank you, Naveed. No network edits behind me. It's one of the hardest things about watching the WWE Network is the ridiculous amount of edits, especially with the music. I've got entire seasons of Monday Nitro and stuff, and it's just so nice to hear the original songs and the way they're supposed to be. Same goes for ECW too. It's really hard to watch anything ECW related, anything at all, on the network. If you were a tape trader and you got ECW shows back in the day, you're lucky because you got that stuff in its raw form. It's so hard to find that now. Oh, okay. Yeah, I remember that. On the Eddie Guerrero tribute show, they did The Hurt by Johnny Cash. They did that for Eddie and Legit, though, but the tribute shows, they did that other song. Not Third Eye Blind. Some band like that did the song for Eddie on both of them. So I guess they just done, and all that's just is just royalty and licensing issues, I'm sure, as far as, paying the fees for having these songs and the use of them. But it just sucks that that's such a big part of it because it really can ruin the experience if you're trying to go back and watch something. And that's what I've noticed when I do reviews for the channel. A lot of times I'll just pull them up on the network instead of pulling up my own copy, and I regret it every time because you have so many edits of that. Oh man, I don't know, Anthony. If we paired Braun Strowman and Dabba-Kato, and who would be the mouthpiece? I don't know if they necessarily need one, but they could do one. I don't know. WWE, I don't trust them to make a Twin Towers type of tag team out of those guys. I feel like they want to push Daba by himself a little bit. if they put him with Braun Strowman, it could be like an Undertaker and Big Show type of scenario, you know, where Undertaker, they paired him with Big Show. Big Show was struggling kind of early on in his WWE days. He was a little bit greenish. He was immature. He had some work to do. And so they put him with Undertaker to kind of straighten him out, you know, and maybe now that Strowman's kind of been around a while, he can do something similar and try to mentor another fellow big guy. Or he can just have constant heat with him the way Big Show had with Khali and stuff. But I don't know. The two of them maybe together if they're both failing in singles. With Strowman, he might be on the downswing. He's not going to win the Universal title on Friday. There's no way. So Dabba-Kato hasn't really gotten off the ground yet on Raw. So it depends on what they try to do with him when they debut him, and you know, if they're just going to put him over in the same way they do everybody else when they first come in, at least the big guys, and just have him squash a bunch of people, you know, the way Ryback did, until you finally put him against somebody like a credible opponent. I don't know. And it doesn't look like they're going to be feuding, because I think Strowman's going to come back to Raw and start feuding with Keith Lee immediately. As a matter of fact, they announced that match for next week. We're getting that, and it's actually a sanctioned match and not an exhibition like we had last week. So Strowman and Keith Lee will be going one-on-one next week. They announced another match too for Raw, but I forget what it is. Three Doors Down. What did I say? Third Eye Blind? I was kind of close. It was a 3-name band. All right. I'm actually kind of impressed. To me, that means I got it right. To me, that's so close that it means I got it right. Oh, buddy, come back in my lap. Yeah. That was a smart thing. You can't go through what you did with Alexa and Bray and then split them up in the draft. That would make no damn sense at all, especially when you can tell like they're onto something. Like, it just feels like Alexa's hitting a home run with this. I think she's doing great. And I'm glad they chose it to be her. I'm glad that they used that, you know, because Bray originally targeted her because of her relationship with Braun Strowman, and Braun Strowman kind of ditched her, you know. So the fact that she's kind of now teamed up with the Fiend is very kind of Lita and Kane-ish, sort of, you know, where it was maybe reluctant at first, but grew into something mutual. And I like that. You know, and instead of Bray Wyatt, you know, because I would think if Bray Wyatt was going to take on a female counterpart, it would be like a little bit more of a hardcore chick, like a Ruby Riott. Somebody all tatted up like he is, you know, or somebody that maybe resembled him a little bit more. Not just the cute little cheerleader chick, you know, but she somehow makes it work. I don't know how, but she does it. Alexa Bliss is fantastic. Beetle, I'm going to block you for that comment. Are we ready for Big E to beat Roman for the belt only to drop it to Goldberg? You are never allowed to comment again. What's scary is Beetle 911 could be right. I don't know if the Fiend should impregnate Alexa. I do think it would be very cute if they had little Fiend babies. Like if she gave birth to like triplet little Fiend babies and they had little masks and they brought them to the ring in like the little 3-person stroller. You know what I mean? Like right down the ramp. They just could be like little creepy animatronic like dummies that they can make, these like little monsters that they really, I mean, we're right around the time of Halloween, so that could work on a random Monday Night Raw. It would just be like a 3-week pregnancy. She'd give birth right away and make these little like robotic little Fiend babies and put them in strollers. I think it'd be funny, like, and drinking bottles, but there's like blood in the bottle instead of milk. I don't know why my mind's going in these sick places right now. I had another great idea I put on Twitter last night for a horror movie. I said, yeah, remember Angry Miz Girl? The girl in the audience when Miz beat Randy Orton for the title, and she was sitting there like that. She's probably like in her 20s now, or close to it, so she's an adult. So they should make a horror movie where Angry Miz Girl hatches this like decades-long plan. Ever since that night, for 10 years, she's been planning this attack on the Miz and to torment and torture his family. And she gets to him one at a time, kills them all. Kills his wife, her kids, his cousins, his grandparents, everybody, and then kills the Miz last. Like, in a twist, she'll be wearing Randy Orton's outfit from a couple of weeks ago, like the janitor outfit with the night goggles, and she did it all for Randy Orton. You know, she was that upset. And the only survivor of the Miz family is Miz's dad. He lives through the whole thing. And then they do a part 2 where he gets revenge on the girl, and he tries to find her and for killing his son and his family, and then maybe you can get Randy Orton involved in that too. And maybe Randy Orton goes on TV and condemn, I know this crazy person did this for me, but I had nothing to do with it. And, you know, I want her to be caught and prosecuted at the highest form of the law. And then that pisses her off. And then she targets Randy Orton and kills him too. I don't know. And call it miserable. Am I onto something? Would people pay to see that or no? She could give birth to a hand. Man, who Mae Young, Jesus. Yeah, that's the thing. You would have to it would have to be cool. Like, you'd have to borderline it into where it's not silly. Like that birth to the hand thing. I mean, some people chuckled, but it was utterly just stupid. You know, if you did something a little goofy like that, try to make it not too goofy and make it a little bit scary or a little bit like kind of gory. Make sure there's like blood and guts hanging off the little robots and stuff. That would be great. Why not? Marcus, appreciate the $2. SmackDown's women division kind of got gutted. I guess, yeah, it did. I guess I didn't really look at it closely. They lost Nikki Cross. They lost Alexa Bliss. They did gain Natalya. That's not a very big gain. They kept Carmella, but they did lose Lacey Evans. Who else did they lose? I think that was it. And they lost Naomi to Raw as well. I guess you're right. The only one they picked up was Natalya. Who else did they get? Yeah, what up with that, man? I'm looking through these rounds here. I don't see any other women. I mean, they picked their own champion, Bayley, but who do they got over there now in terms of contenders? Sasha and Bayley, which makes me think their feud will stretch way beyond Hell in a Cell. And now Natalya. Help. Who's left? I don't even know who's... Oh, Bianca Belair. Bianca Belair. Oh, that's actually good for Bianca because that puts her... She's a big fish in a little pond now. So that could immediately put her in line for a title shot as soon as Sasha and Bayley wrap up business. You would think she's got to be the next one in line, right? They kept the couples together. You know, they did put... and I mentioned this on Saturday that I didn't think that you necessarily needed to put the Street Profits on SmackDown. You don't need to have partners or couples on the same brand. They're in the same city. They're in the same building. It really shouldn't matter, but they kept them on the same brand anyway. That is true. They could be getting Becky and Ronda at some point. I mean, I think Becky still is a long way away from coming. She still has to have the baby and then go through however long she wants to take off for that. And then Ronda coming back, who knows? But if they were added to the Friday night crew, that would be that would beef it up. Yeah, and then maybe SmackDown gets the NXT call-ups. Maybe they, and that's the thing. I said that Gargano, I can see Gargano and Candice on SmackDown before Raw. I feel like they're just better suited there. So they might pick up Candice. Shayna and Nia, I think, got drafted to Raw tonight, right? Or the other night? So I think they're stuck there. So there's nobody else aside from some NXT stars. I don't think did Mickie James get drafted? I know she's kind of out with a busted nose right now. I kind of missed. I don't have my night 2 results, so I don't remember. Or my night 1 results. So I don't remember the deal there. But yeah, I didn't even think about that or notice that. And, you know, Mandy Rose recently left. You'd think that Sonya Deville, I suppose, would be coming back to SmackDown at some point. Technically, she's had to leave WWE, but we know she'll be back. So you will add her to the mix. So that's a pretty good core group there. If you think Sasha, Bayley, Bianca, Sonya, assuming Sonya comes back, that ain't bad. That's not bad at all. Daniel Rodriguez, thanks for the 2. Who's winning the draft so far? Draft is mostly over, aside from what they're going to do, I think, on online here. I'd probably say Raw. I mean, they did snag a lot of people. I mean, a lot of talent from SmackDown. I mean, think about it. They got The Fiend. They got Strowman. They got Riddle. They got Hardy. They got their tag team champions. They got Alexa Bliss. They stole Lacey. They stole Sheamus. Yeah, it feels like, and they also got more picks. You know, they would also always get 3 picks per round, and SmackDown would only get 2, which I also don't like. But it's the way it's got to be. They kept the Hurt Business. They kept Retribution. They kept everything. So Yeah, I think Raw won technically. I mean, looking at all of SmackDown's picks, I think Seth Rollins and Kevin Owens is pretty good, and Alistair Black, another big pickup, technically a steal since they picked him up so incredibly late. And they get to keep Sammy, of course, but other than that, they did lose. I don't think getting Lars Sullivan is any sort of a big victory for them. Keeping Corbin certainly is not. You should have sent Corbin to fucking main event. Yeah, I think they got the shit end on this one. Yeah, oh, there you go. Transferring Heat podcast. Thank you for that. I mentioned that on Saturday. Dakota and Gonzalez. I think I agree with them as well going up. And with them, it's not a matter of, who deserves it first or whatever. They're a good kind of pairing. I don't, in WWE, it won't last. They'll break them up so incredibly quick. But I kind of like the female throwback to Shawn and Diesel. I just because I like that type of stuff. I wish they would play more into that. I wish Dakota would start, maybe targeting more Shawn-like outfits and ring attire. Maybe she can come out there with a little village person hat like he used to wear or something like that. And Raquel's just kind of got the all-black leather. It'd be cool to see her put those little leather things that hung on the sides of Nash's tights all the time, or Nash's leather pants, and just do something with it. Maybe even do the same pose, how Shawn would be down in the thing and Diesel would be above him and all that. I just like that sort of thing. So I wouldn't mind seeing them come up at all. I don't think Dakota is going to get a run with the title really at this point. So call her up. Dakota, Raquel, and Candice all coming into SmackDown will help the women's division greatly. And then if you bring Sonya Deville back and you've already got Bianca there now, I guess it's not as bad as it sounds. But they need some underneath people too. Oh, God. Yeah, you might be right. The pain has just begun. The post-WrestleMania title feud will be Big E versus Baron Corbin for 4 straight months. It might be. Possibly Rhea Ripley coming in too. I feel like she's still got a little bit of unfinished business in NXT. We did see Triple H kind of endorse her a little bit on the last NXT episode and say, you're going to be the person of the future or whatever. And I believe that she won she gets the next title shot, right? So she's either going to take the belt back here or EO is going to end her and beat her, and then Rhea comes up to the main roster. That could happen. Yeah, and Nia and Shayna can be there, but only when they are the champions. So. Huh. Oh, I like that idea. Alistair can be the Fiend Hunter, cleansing all of the male superstars that gets corrupted by Bray. That would be interesting. Yeah, I was going to mention her at some point, Corey. I don't know about Simone, Rock's daughter. She's there. She just got there, though. I don't know how she's progressing or whatever. So in terms of when she's going to start having actual matches, maybe not yet. I don't know how much she worked out before getting to the PC. Like, has she done any sort of in-ring work before? Has she been working on this prior to getting signed, or did she just decide she wanted to be a wrestler and Rock's like, I got you, girl, don't worry about it, boop, 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 calls up WWE, hey, guess what, you're gonna hire my daughter, which is probably how it went. So it just depends on how she's doing. I haven't seen any footage of her at all in the ring at all. She seems like an incredibly nice young lady. I hope she does well. You have to root for anybody in a second generation role like that, especially somebody with ties to The Rock to continue that Samoan family bloodline going. And that would make, especially if she becomes like any sort of a star at all, you think about Peter Maivia down to Rocky, down to Rock, passing it on to her, is an incredible, like, just family history there. So I want nothing but great things for her. And I hope she progresses well, and I hope she's good. I hope she can make I really hope that she can figure out a way to incorporate a people's elbow, but maybe with a twist on it, like some sort of, not a finisher move, but, do something that's a callback to that. Maybe a couple of callbacks here or there in promos, but don't become a carbon copy of your dad. Create your own path, kind of like Charlotte does. Charlotte does the woo, and she has the music, but she still is her own, deal too. So I hope Simone works out. I really do, but I have no clue in terms of her progress, if she's ready to have a match, even if it's in front of a live audience or a live event and not on TV. I don't even know if she's ready for that, to be honest with you. Simone feels like, if I'm just using my own best judgment and I had to guess without seeing her at all, we're still 2 years away from even seeing her, like, really that much. So we'll see. Hey, K-Dog's Kennel, what's going on? Good to see you. Oh, you Miss Elizabeth? Yeah, she has always been my favorite. She's the best. Yeah, and you're right, too. Simone is super young, which is a good thing. She's got years ahead of her. But in terms of, like, where she is and the progress she's made as a professional, I think someone like Dominic Mysterio is far better seasoned and ready for the big time than she is. So she's probably got a way to go. We just wish her the best. Hope she stays healthy. Be careful with your knees and all that stuff. And, I always just think about people like Tegan Knox and just what a shitty deal she got and how bad that was. And I hope that doesn't happen to Simone, because she just seems like a super cool person, pretty down to earth girl too, for somebody that's the daughter of someone so famous. And that's all I really ask for, out of like second generation stars. I try not to get on their case too much about getting opportunities that they shouldn't get or whatever, because that's part of being a second generation star. There is something to be said about growing up in the business. Think about if you're a little kid and your dad just takes you to an endless stream of backstage locker rooms and you're meeting people, like Roman Reigns has got tons of pictures with him and Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant as a kid, because he got to just hang around and be around it and absorb it and learn it. There's just something that's just instilled in you at a little bit earlier of an age if you get to be around it like that. So those people, to me, are like money in the bank. You should want to try to get the best out of them, because it can also carry on family histories and traditions of wrestlers that I loved and I grew up with and stuff like that. So I never, as long as they don't have an attitude, as long as, like Randy Orton, you hear the horror stories about him, from when he first started, what a cocky prick he was. But damn, he was good. And he came out on the other side of that, much more mature individual, where he even agrees with that he was kind of a pain in the ass to deal with back in the day, and he should have done better. So as long as a second generation or third generation star, or fourth in Simone's case, has a good attitude and works hard, I want nothing but the best for him. So we'll keep an eye on her. I think it'd just be cool. I think it'd be so cool to have, remember back before Rock got real big, WrestleMania 13, and he did the match with the Sultan and all that shit, and like Rocky Johnson came into the ring to help him out, and they both beat up, I think, Sheik and Sultan, and did their little thing in the ring. It would be cool to see Simone and like an old ass Rock, have that moment. Not that even when Rock is 70, he's still going to be jacked, but if he can come in the ring and her and him can just kick some ass at WrestleMania one year against Miz and Maurice or something, might be fun. I'd like to see it. Oh, yikes. She's already been under the knife twice. Oh man, K-Dog's Kennel, I am sorry to hear that, and best of luck to you. Been a crazy couple of weeks. Our cat had to be rushed to the emergency surgery. She swallowed a plastic cap, which had to be removed, so I've been caring for her oh, that's gnarly, yeah. Man, so yeah, cut out of her stomach or something? Wow. Yeah, that's scary. Surgery on pets is never good, because they don't understand. They're like, yo, why do I got this thing on my neck, and why is my hair shaved, and why do I got a hole in me? You feel so bad. Like, God, I just wish I could explain it to him, And I'm a little bit worried about my guy too, because he's been having some vomiting issues. So, hoping he's all right. Oh yeah, and thank you. Yeah, it's still a little bit to do, but I'm mostly on the other side of the move now, starting to settle in and get settled and kind of back to life. So that was a busy couple of weeks, just kind of getting everything done and trying to get settled. So it's all here too. Thank you for that. Go over here and answer some Twitters. A bunch of retweets and stuff, but no questions. Thought there would be a question or two over there I can knock out. Yeah, Reese Jones, Ruby getting back to the title picture now puts her in a position to do that. Being on SmackDown, that's probably a good spot for her. I forgot about Ruby and Liv. That's right, when we talked about them earlier. So you have to add them to the mix too. Completely forgot about Ruby and Liv. They just got drafted here after the show went off the air, so they will be joining SmackDown. So yeah, you can find, if you really kind of dig deep, you can find a good amount of talent on the roster, but it did look for the most part that they took a big hit in the women's division over there. Probably because so much is going to be tied up with Sasha and Bayley for a while, you would think, probably till the end of the year. Hell in the Cells usually are kind of a blow-off, but if they're both on the same brand, I don't see how the issue can be over, especially if there's a title change, especially if Sasha wins the title against Bayley. Bayley just passed her year mark run at the title here, so if she drops it, even though there's that no automatic rematch rule, she'll get one, and the Hell in the Cell might serve as a beginning match, not a blow-off match, which I think happens way too often. So with so much emphasis being on the two of them and the title being involved there's probably no rush to really beef up your roster with contenders if they're not going to be getting shots right now anyway. But there's a couple of pieces there, like Ruby Riott can maybe get back on the winning ways, or to her winning ways, and of course Bianca Belair. She's to me the MVP of that crew over there, aside from Sasha and Bayley. And I want to see her up there, like, literally right away. And we'll see, too, on Friday if they'll continue on those vignettes with her, kicking people's ass in sporting events. That was always fun. So hopefully they'll continue that on Friday, and we'll start seeing Bianca right away. Yeah, I like Liv Morgan, too. WWE just never seems to, do anything with her. We were excited for her while she was gone. She was posting some pretty cryptic stuff on social media. We thought she could even be a really good candidate for like a Sister Abigail character, or some sort of an alliance with The Fiend, which has now gone to Alexa Bliss. And then they brought her back in what seemed to be like in a lesbian angle with Lana, and then immediately dropped it like it never happened, put her right back with Ruby Riott, and she's back who she was prior to her leaving. So they don't seem to like really ever follow through with anything with her. So now that she's at least with Ruby for a while, this gives at least they're not doing stuff that makes no sense. So we'll see how long they keep the two of them together. They just got annihilated in the tag team title match last week on Raw, so I don't know if there's really any point to keeping them together on SmackDown. But breaking up Riott and Liv might be better, in the long run there. Man, they like breaking up tag teams right now, don't they? Yeah, some of these other picks, too, as we're reading through them here, like Titus O'Neil going to Raw. He's not been on TV anyway. Peyton, got drafted. Billie Kay, I don't think got drafted, so she will be in the free agent pool. Let's see if that information is up, actually. Paige reveals she was drafted to Twitch in 2020 draft. That's what she put on her Twitter page. That's hysterical. Let's see if there's any information on the free agents. Yeah, so the free agents right now, we've got Andrade and Zelina, both free agents. Billie Kay and Tamina currently are the only free agents. Certainly there's got to be more. And here's a really good list of everybody from tonight. So yeah, Raw got loaded up. They got Bray Wyatt, Randy Orton, Charlotte Flair, Braun Strowman, Matt Riddle, Jeff Hardy, all of Retribution, Mace, Slapjack, Bisquick, Dick Lick, Reckoning, Mustafa Ali, and T-Bar, Keith Lee, Alexa Bliss, Elias, Lacey, Sheamus, Nikki Cross, R-Truth, Dabba-Kato, Titus, Peyton, Akira, Lana, Riddick Moss, and Arturo Ruas. SmackDown, Bayley, Street Profits, Daniel Bryan, Owens, Sullivan, Corbin, Zayn, Cesaro, and Nakamura, Rude, Ziggler, Apollo, Carmella, Alistair, Natalya, and the Riots. Free agents are only a few of them there. There's got to be more free agents than that. I didn't see Mickie James' name, or that's just free agents in this particular pool. I think maybe Friday had one as well. Oh, here we go. Here's more free agents. Oh, no, I guess not. I don't see any more free agents. Yeah, well, There's probably only a couple of more pieces and then a couple of more injuries. You know, like technically Jimmy Uso, you know, didn't get drafted either, I don't think. So at some point, some injured talent and some returning talent is going to have to be placed somewhere. But if they're not on TV right now, I guess it doesn't really matter where they land. They can just show up wherever they want, and WWE will just make up some rule. Oh, they got traded or something. Or the board of directors said they're on SmackDown now. They'll just make some shit up that'll be just utterly ridiculous. I don't know, Andrew. I mean, I'm definitely going to be doing a Hell in a Cell predictions. You guys have to help me. The three big Hell in a Cell matches. We've got Drew and Randy, and we've got Sasha and Bayley. And what the hell's the other one? And there's one more. Oh yeah, Roman and Jay. I think I'm gonna go Roman and Drew both to retain, and Sasha to win the title. That's what I think. I think Orton is doing. I mentioned this last week. I think Randy Orton is doing what Triple H did for Batista. Because I swear, didn't he put him over 3 pay-per-views in a row, culminating with a Hell in the Cell? Isn't it the same thing? He put him over at WrestleMania 21. Then I think he put him over in the pay-per-view after that, unless I have it wrong. And then it all culminated in the Hell in the Cell, right? So it feels like that's very similar here to what Randy is doing for Drew. And then Randy, like I said, at some point can find himself over on the blue brand, and before he retires, that Universal title has to be added to his resume, 100%. So in terms of Hell in the Cell, though, I don't think he beats Drew here. Not after what they've done. You know, he beat him at SummerSlam, beat him in the ambulance, just beat him here and end it. And yeah, that's kind of what I think will happen. And of course, Roman, we know, is not only going to beat Jey Uso, but he might do some serious damage to him. And I'm glad that Jey Uso has remained on TV. I'm glad that he gets to stay in this role. But I said prior to Clash of Champions that Roman should just completely annihilate him so badly that he stays off of TV until Jimmy comes back and is healthy enough to come back. And they didn't do that. They stretched it out to where now you're getting a Hell in a Cell match between the two. So I say do it here. You know, just do that whole thing here and just have him, you know, because Jay does not want to acknowledge him as the tribal chief, so it might wind up costing him his life or serious injury, even if he does say it at the end, because it is an I quit match, and he does say I quit, you know, he could be in a world of shit here. So I'm curious if, you know, I'm worried because the Hell in the Cell, I mentioned this on Saturday, the Hell in the Cell has been ruined so badly, especially last year. It's bad enough the thing looks stupid, and it's bad enough the thing is red. But then after what they did last year with the DQ finish, and shout out to X-Pac, who was on the on the watch along panel, and he just flips out. He's like, how the hell do you have a disqualification in a Hell in the Cell match? And like, the referee can stop it. Okay, fine. The referee can stop it. Well, if this is like an I quit match, can't the referee stop the match here too? Same thing applies, right? So I quit match means dick. Doesn't mean anything. We can still get a shady finish, and based on how hard and stubborn Jey Uso tends to be and seems to be, he might not want to say I quit, where the referee is like, okay, I either have to end the match or this man dies on my watch. So ring the bell. This match is over. We're stopping it right now. He can't even defend himself. You've hurt him and knocked him out so bad he couldn't say I quit if he wanted to. So it might be another situation like that where they can technically do a schmozzy finish. But, you know, if Jey Uso remains conscious, I suppose that he will say I quit. But then again, he's still in the ring with Roman, so in the cage with him. So if Roman gets him to say I quit, Roman might not be satisfied with that. Yeah, okay, the match is over. I won, but you still have to acknowledge me as the tribal chief. And then if he doesn't, you do one big crazy spot off the cage or through something, or, you know, something big to where it appears that Jey Uso is no longer breathing, type of thing. So I don't know. And I feel like since that was the main event of Clash of Champions, I really hope Sasha and Bayley main event Hell in the Cell. It's got to be them, especially since Roman and Jey just feels predictable. Yeah, we may never see Jey Uso again. So after Hell in the Cell, he could leave and then, like I said, come back with Jimmy. But then they could even swerve us another time. You would think that he might be coming back with Jimmy to get revenge on Roman, or they could swerve us all and join Roman. You know, maybe that was that beef just needed to happen for the evolution of the family and the transition of attitude, to Jay and Jimmy now aligning themselves with Roman and standing side by side with him. I can really see that happening. I wouldn't be surprised at all if they wound up doing that. So, but that would probably be beginning of next year or late this year, depending on Jimmy's progress. But he definitely didn't look ready to go when we saw him at Clash. So he's got some work to do in terms of rehab and stuff. So when he comes back, I think you do that. Oh, thank you for that. So it was WrestleMania 21, then Backlash, then Vengeance, all in 2005. Gotcha. Yeah, Frank Castle's probably right, too. Jay is probably going to get just completely destroyed in the ring while his brother is forced to watch. That's kind of the point of the Hell in the Cell. Would be interesting if they brought Rikishi in for that. Maybe have him and Jay or him and Jimmy both come down to the ring pleading with Roman, come on, this is your family, don't do it. And Roman does it anyway and executes poor Jay right there in the ring. Yeah, and the fact that Drew McIntyre beat Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania and has not main evented a pay-per-view since then is ridiculous to me. So he could main event Hell in the Cell. I just feel like this long build feels like we're like 2 years in on this Bayley and Sasha stuff. I just feel due to the importance of that angle, it should go on last. But for Drew, at some point, this dude needs to main event. I mean, what the hell are they doing? 2005 was a great year. I don't give 2005 enough credit. I said so in my WrestleMania Big Memories video a few years back when I talked about WrestleMania 21, and I was like, I never as a modern fan really looked back on that show with that much fondness because to me the business had changed so much from 5 years prior to that. But now looking back where we are now in wrestling, man, 2005 looks great. And I did a review on the Raw Homecoming show that Barry sponsored a couple of years back. It's on the channel if you want to watch it, the Raw Homecoming from 2005, and that was a pretty bloody affair too. And I remember commenting on that podcast. I remember saying that 2005 kind of surprises me. I don't every time I go back and watch that year, it's good, but at the time I didn't appreciate it for how good it was because I was kind of missing. I was kind of feeling that wrestling just wasn't feeling the same. It was a lot different, but man, it was some good matches that year. That was the year of Shawn and Angle. Oh my God, good stuff. I don't think so. If Rikishi showed up at Hell in the Cell, I don't think he bumps off the top of the cell like he did at Armageddon. That's another pay-per-view review I did last year, Armageddon 2001, where he took the big bump backwards off into the bed of the truck. I don't think Rikishi would be able to climb to the top of that thing unless they raised him up there. And no, I don't think he's going to take the bump. That would be funny, though. Every Randy Orton match is super long. That's my only problem with his match being in the main event. I don't mind long Randy Orton matches. They can be drawn out, plus his style. It's not like he's not the Young Bucks in there. So, you're going to see a more slower, methodical style, but sometimes you want that in a match. Yeah, Ronnie, you're right. The funny thing is I saw some people complaining about the Alistair Black and Kevin Owens match. Oh, he's buried. He's just a mid-card talent now. I'm like, Owens needed to win that. Owens is awesome. There's no shame in losing to Owens. The match didn't bury Alistair. The draft did. Going second to last is stupid. Even if he did lose earlier on in the night, you'd still want that guy in your roster. So the fact that he went so late like that was, I feel like that was a legit burial for Alistair Black. Way more so than the loss to Owens. Edge is coming back to lead the Forgotten Sons. Let's forget that idea. No thanks. Oh yeah, Ronnie, we're getting the red cell. We absolutely are. Yeah, what do you guys think they're going to do for Survivor Series? Speaking of Survivor Series, are they going to do the brand versus brand thing a month after a draft? Does it even really mean anything if you do that? And if you're a talent, why are you fighting so hard for bragging rights for your brand when you're just moved from brand to brand? Why you can't develop any loyalty? Maybe back in the day you could make a case like that, like for the Paul Heyman crew back in like 03, when he created that cluster of like Angle and Edge and Eddie and Ray and shit, but now it's like they just bounce back and forth so much. They have nothing to prove against the other brand. They don't care. And as fans, we shouldn't believe that they care. It's stupid to be drafted to a brand and then all of a sudden you bleed blue and white or you bleed red and white when you were just on the other damn show like 2 weeks ago. It doesn't make any sense. So I could do without the Survivor Series brand versus brand thing, brand supremacy. I think WWE thinks that shit is important, but it's not. Like, I don't care at all. None of us should. None of us should. Retribution versus Hurt Business is probably likely. That would be a good one. Like I said, I'd like to see the Retribution come face-to-face with the Fiend somewhere. Like have Retribution crash a match with the lights going down and doing all their spooky shit, and then they come back and then they're all in the ring, and then have the lights go down again, and they come back and the Fiend is in the ring and he's got the claw on T-Bar or Ali or something like that, or Bisquick or one of those guys, and he puts him down. That might be the only thing to actually strike fear into Retribution, because they've been attacking so viciously and violently up until now, and then you put them in the same ring with a monster, they might be like, oh, okay, never mind. We're going to take it easy. We take it all back. Does Black go back to the closet again? Hope not. I don't know. You mean like if they kind of, maybe hit the reset button with him and he starts, reinventing himself or something. I kind of liked what they were doing with him. I like the eye look that he has, and he kind of turned heel, and now it just seems, going second to last in the draft. This is a former NXT champion, a guy that we thought would be instant money on the main roster, even went a year undefeated streak on Raw. What he's been rendered down to in such a short amount of time, it's frustrating. Frustrating. Yeah, it could be main roster versus NXT. We got a little taste of that last year. Thanks for the 5, K-Dog's Kennel. As an old school fan like myself, I know you will appreciate this one. What were your thoughts on the Ric Flair-Randy Savage feud in WWE, then in WCW? I liked their feud in WWE. I liked their match, I should say, at WrestleMania 8, which was really underrated. The feud was slapped together a little quickly because WWE, for some reason, decided not to do the Flair and Hogan match. So they kind of pivoted, and all of a sudden, there's this previous relationship with Ric Flair and Elizabeth, and it was a little bit silly, some of that stuff. I almost think you didn't need it involved there because you never really had a payoff. And then even at WrestleMania, they were teasing that they were going to unveil some centerfold of Elizabeth, and you never even saw it. You never even heard about it again. It just added to Randy Savage's anger, how he wanted to get at Ric Flair. And then, of course, Ric Flair sexually assaulting his wife at the end of the WrestleMania 8 match threw Savage into a rage. And the rest of their feud was not great. As a matter of fact, the match that Flair won the belt back in had to be redone. Vince hated the first take so much, he sent them both back out there to do it again, and really might have even contributed to Brett winning the title shortly after that, to that poor performance. So I think the feud started out good, and the WrestleMania match was a classic, one of my favorites of all time, and then right downhill from there. In terms of their WCW one, I only remember a little bit of that, like in the early Nitro days. And I remember the high heel shoe getting involved there with Flair, and then by that point, I think Elizabeth was on Flair's side. She had turned heel, and then it was Hogan and Savage going against Flair and maybe the Horsemen or something, and the high heel shoe that was used to win matches a couple of times. Thought it was a little bit silly, and I thought it was a really poor attempt at recreating the past, which is what WCW always wanted to do. They just recreated everything. How the very first Hogan match had Mr. T involved, just like at WrestleMania 1. And then he beat Ric Flair, and then Hogan's next big opponent was Big Van Vader, who he fought in a cage, just like Bundy at WrestleMania 2. And then after Vader, it was the Giant, just like Andre at WrestleMania 3. It was literally like they were repeating and repacing his steps from WWE one at a time, and it was very unoriginal. And then when Savage came over, and then they got Elizabeth in there, and they put the Mega Powers right back together and brought the fake Ultimate Warrior in. They were doing stupid shit. So I didn't really like anything they did together in WCW in the early days. But after that, 97, 98, I don't remember really what Savage and Flair were really doing with each other after that. Yeah, and then the Savage and Flair feud kind of culminated in another kind of botched pay-per-view because it was supposed to be Savage and Warrior taking on Flair and Razor, and then Warrior got let go along with the British Bulldog, and they had to bring Mr. Perfect out of retirement to turn babyface and join up with Savage, and that lacked a little bit of sense as well, considering how hard they were fighting against each other. Go back and watch that WrestleMania 8 match. I mean, it was a handicap match. It was not Randy Savage versus Ric Flair. It was Randy Savage versus Ric Flair and Mr. Perfect. He was all over the place. Son of a bitch was getting involved. But you can't. Yeah, so I think it had good moments, but kind of fizzled at the end. You know, it was a really big explosion, and then it just not much. Rubbing on my microphone stand. Hey, buddy. Do you think? What do you think? What do you think Bray Wyatt is going to do? Maybe go on a like a brainwashing tour and try to capture talents, or is he just sticking with Alexa and that's all he needs? I don't think Bray necessarily needs to build a faction. We already have Retribution and the Hurt Business on Raw, but him just going around and changing wrestlers' lives might be a little bit fun. I'd be into that. Yeah, but please don't walk into the electrical panel back there where I have all my shit plugged in. I'd appreciate it. Yeah, that was uncensored. I remember the build for that. I remember watching that on Nitro and literally laughing my ass off when they had Hogan and Savage, and then they started bringing out all the guys that they were going to face, including like Loch Ness, and I think Kamala was involved in that. It was basically like 12-on-1. They had a whole bunch of guys in there. You didn't even know who they were, and the match took place at uncensored, and they won. Hogan and Savage, basically did a Cena always wins scenario. With these 12 dudes and uncensored, and it was just so unrealistic and so stupid, and such a good example of how WCW was so bad at being able to utilize the big stars that they wanted to put them in stupid like WWE-like situations. And Bischoff, one thing about Eric Bischoff is he always likes to say, and he's right about this, he always likes to say that WWE rewrites history. He rewrites his own fucking history too, because he always says that WWE, we wanted to make a conscious effort to be different than WWE. Their stuff was really cartoony. Ours was more geared to adults. Bullshit. The Dungeon of Doom was not geared towards adults. This Hogan and Savage stuff in that cage with those 12 dudes was not geared towards adults. The Yeti was not geared towards adults. None of that. I mean, it was ridiculous. They were doing the silliest, dumbest shit ever, just as dumb as WWE ever did. It wasn't until Nash and Hall got there and made their product cooler that Eric started saying, "Oh, we want to be a little bit more edgy, a little bit more mature." None of that even happened until Nash got there and Hall got there, and they started acting cool. Once that happened, then Bischoff was right. Their product was more attractive to an 18 to 30 or 4-year-old demo, where WWE was still probably banking on younger audience members filling out their ratings and stuff. So, they're both kind of guilty of that, but those early days of Nitro and those early days of Hogan in WCW, like from 94 up until Nash and Hall got there, were silly. They were silly. They had some stuff. They had some cruiserweights. By then Eddie was there. Benoit was there. They had some good wrestlers. Cruiserweight division was starting to fill out and come together and stuff. But, overall, their like top storylines were dumb. Way dumber than anything WWE was doing at the time. Oh, yeah. Zeus was there. Zeus was another guy. Yeah, they couldn't use his name, though. I remember that match. I remember the Brett and Perfect match taking place at Uncensored, and, WWE again, or WCW trying to recreate greatness in the WWE. But by this point, both of those guys were past, what they were capable of doing with each other. And when you go back and watch that match, one thing about Perfect and Brett, they do a lot of the same spots in their matches. They always do the crotch spot when Brett kicks his legs out, and a couple of reversals are always the same. And they've kind of got the thing choreographed a little bit, but they did a lot of the similar spots in 98 that they did in 91. One thing I remembered about that match. Yeah, the Yeti, and then they dry humped Hogan, and yeah, and then the shit on the Cobo Hall. It was Halloween Havoc '95, and they had the monster truck thing, and then the giant fell off the roof and lived, and then Bischoff was going to talk to us about how WWE was childish and cartoony, and they were more mature. Bullshit. No, you weren't. They would get that way, but not at the time he claims it happened. Oh yeah, thank you for that, Andrew. I did that I think last year. My reviews of 1987 and 1988 Survivor Series. I remember them both very well, very well. One of them, and specifically in 1987, I got in a gnarly bike accident and just knocked out all my teeth. It was a mess. And then in 1988, I remember watching it Thanksgiving night. It was a blast. Hey Joey, what's going on, man? Good to see you in here. Yeah, Ronnie, they did. It was definitely a dry hump. I mean, what would you call it? Have you guys seen the footage of that? When the Yeti and Giant, they basically sandwich and bookend Hulk Hogan, and they do something that doesn't, it just looks sexual. Go look it up. You'll laugh your ass off. I remember the first World War III match they did in WCW and being kind of intrigued by it because I had never seen 3 rings before. I think I did once in like AWA, like way years ago. And 2 rings have been done plenty of times, but 3 rings was very cool. And, to bring 60 guys in, you were going to have to bring in people that weren't previously in the company. And I can't remember now off the top of my head, but I think there was guys like Greg the Hammer Valentine, maybe a random Jim Powers or Paul Roma, or just a few names here and there from the past that they were just introducing to come in and be a part of the Battle Royal just to fill out the field. They needed guys. So they were bringing in people left and right just for one-shot deals, and it was kind of cool to see some of them in. Oh, that's what he was called? Z Gangsta? How long was he on TV? I remember him on Nitro, but only during that angle. But again, that was an angle that really wasn't even that great in 1989, and here they are trying to recreate that. WWE brought in Zeus to capitalize off the movie, No Holds Barred, and back then it was a little bit more believable because Zeus was such a badass, and, to a young kid, he might believe that this guy's really a monster that can kill Hulk Hogan. But now you're in 1996, and now he's Z Gangsta, and it's just, you're really trying to capitalize off a No Holds Barred, a shitty movie. You're really trying to recreate that. There was just no originality in WCW back then, like whatsoever. I'll be wrapping up the podcast soon, buddy. I think my cat kind of wants me to be done. All right, buddy. We're almost done. A couple of more questions. Yeah, Tony, we talked to Tony Karan. Go back and listen earlier on. We were going through the results of Raw. We talked about the cool Eddie spot. And Ricochet did it well. Sometimes, when you try to recreate that, it's not done. Eddie was the master at it. But Ricochet did a pretty good job of making it look good, and we all appreciate the Eddie tribute. And we're coming up on the 15-year anniversary of his death next month, which is just mind-blowing to think about that it's been that long already. To me, in my wrestling mind, it feels recent, and it was 15 years ago. Hey, stop messing with the microphone. If WWE Hogan must pose, WCW must be dry humped. That could be a better. It could be a better slogan than where the big boys play. I always hated that. As such a WWE fanboy at the time, I was so anti WCW. That slogan drove me nuts. Drove me nuts. It was just like, if you're like a Sega Genesis or Nintendo, Super Nintendo fan, Genesis was clearly the inferior console between the two. But they would make it sound like they were so great, and it used to fucking piss me off, even though I had a Genesis. But the same thing with this. It's like where the big boys play, where the old boys play. I used to get so mad. Oh, my God. I'd do anything to go back 25 years. Yeah, Ronnie. Oh, was the Royal Rumble ever? Was that Royal Rumble on Saturdays? I didn't order the first one. I ordered 90, though. I don't remember what day of the week they came on. I remember Survivor Series was on Thanksgiving night, and then they went to Thanksgiving Eve before going to the Sunday format, which actually was 95. Was the first year they put it on Sunday. And I remember WrestleMania coming on in the afternoon, like on the East Coast, it would come on at like 4 o'clock. I remember watching WrestleMania 6 at 4 o'clock at my house in North Carolina. So, yeah, the times were all different back then, back in the day. Oh, that's a good question about the free agents and where they will land. I only have a small free agent list. I didn't see a big one, but the free agents, the ones that are available, potentially going to NXT, I'd be cool with that. I just don't know if there's any free agents in this particular pool that I would care to see there. There's a few names I would like to see, but they've already been drafted. And I think the biggest one was Ricochet. I think Ricochet going back to NXT would have been great, but they've kept him on the main brands. So, yeah, I don't know. It just depends on who's kind of left. You know, we got Zelina and Andrade. I wouldn't mind them going back to NXT, but I don't see it happening, even though I think they'd both be great back there. Might be a good place for Zelina to do a little more work in the ring. You know, if they gave her a title shot, you know, there seems like they're going to put her in the ring now and explore her maybe being a singles wrestler a little bit. NXT might be a better place for her, you know, just to continue learning and get better. So they could go back, be a good swap. You know, if you're going to bring back a male and female duo, move Candice and Johnny to the main roster and put Zelina and Andrade down. I think that's a gross misuse of Andrade. I think he's much better than NXT, but they might. Plus, he's with Charlotte, so I can see him being there. Where did I forgot. Where did Garza go? Because I think you got to keep Garza and Andrade apart. Garza's on SmackDown. So, yeah, Andrade will stay on Raw. Raw will get him. Oh, no, I'm sorry. He was just in the pool. Where the hell did he go? There we go. I can't remember where Garza landed. You guys are going to have to help me. I'm pretty sure he went to SmackDown. Well, no, he stayed on Raw because he won tonight. I don't fucking know. But you would think that they would probably keep Charlotte and Andrade together, and Charlotte's on the Raw brand. So I don't know. Oh, 94 was on a Saturday, huh? Wow, I didn't realize that because I remember I didn't watch 94 that year because I was in Pennsylvania. I was in Philadelphia visiting my cousins for Thanksgiving. We drove up there. We would always do that. My mom's sister and I had two cousins that were both my age. So we would always spend Easters and Thanksgivings together because we were only like an 8-hour drive. So we were up there, and I remember having to call a hotline to get the results the night of. But I must have been thinking in my head it was Thanksgiving Eve. So they did it on a Saturday that year, huh? That's interesting. And I remember, like, you got to remember for a Bret Hart fan to hear the news that not only is he not champion anymore, but Bob Backlund is. Oh, my God. That was a very sad little Greg in 1994. That was one sad senior in high school, man. Yeah, I don't know why they weren't. They should have just for fun. They should have put, NXT, maybe even NXT UK, added some extras in there because I definitely think it's time to send a couple of people up and bring some, NXT guys into the main roster. And like I said, I think Johnny and Candice and Raquel and Dakota would be fantastic call-ups. So we'll see. There's still time to do that. They can still do it. They might just work it out later, All right, cool. I think that catches up the questions. Well, Anthony Russell, that's not really a question, but the Fiend is going to dominate. I definitely think he could be in a good position on Raw. And that's one thing we should ask, too, because, oh, you meant the Royal Rumble was on a Saturday in 94. Sorry. Thank you for that, Ronnie. Huh, I ordered that one. I guess I just don't remember now. It's been so long. I ordered that one on PPV. That tie made me so mad as a Bret Hart guy. I'd be happy a couple of months later, but I was like, fuck Luger, But assuming that Drew McIntyre finishes his deal with Randy Orton at Hell in the Cell, who's next? Probably right now you'd have to say The Fiend, unless they want to have Braun Strowman do a job to him too. But he looks like he's going to be doing something with Keith Lee. Keith Lee could also get a shot against McIntyre, but it might be Bray Wyatt. I'd be down with that, I guess. Hey, buddy, I'm coming. You know, let's see if we can get some suggestions there other than maybe a Keith Lee or a Bray Wyatt. You know, who do you think would be next in line for McIntyre if it's not one of those guys? Based on who they have. AJ, I suppose. I'd take an AJ and McIntyre match. I'd probably just take that on Raw. Doesn't necessarily need to be a pay-per-view for me. But you give me something like that on Raw, just in a title match, main event of Raw. Drew beats him, but the match is amazing. I'd be into that. Dabakato is from Poland. Look at there. So is a lot of my family. I have a lot of Polish family history and heritage. They cook like pierogies and naleśniki and all that shit. They cook that every year for my dad eats sauerkraut and all that stuff. I like some of it. One thing about Polish food is just it's incredibly bland, you know, like I just didn't like, especially like pierogies, unless you make them real good, you know, just kind of bland food to me. That's my only critique with it, you know. If you like spicy food, you are not going to like Polish food. Roman Reigns, you mean Roman Reigns isn't an opponent for McIntyre? I don't think so. I think they're going to stay where they are. How funny was it that I forgot that they wrestled a year ago at WrestleMania? I was talking about building to some big future match between them, and somebody was like, they wrestled at 35. I'm like, they did? I completely forgot. And they're like, yeah, Roman beat him, dumbass. I completely forgot about that. So, but I still think you could build to it in the future if you wanted to. Oh, yeah. Wade Barrett is another good one, because Wade Barrett did recently say that if he was going to come out of retirement, he's not retired, but he was going to get back in the ring again, he'd be willing to do it against Drew McIntyre. And Drew basically was like, sit your old ass down or something like that. So they kind of played that up a little bit. Also talk of Drew McIntyre one day getting in the ring with Tyson Fury, which would suck. If there wasn't a pandemic, I think the plan was to put those two guys face to face at a UK pay-per-view. Oh, God. I'm almost glad that didn't happen. But I'm not glad we had the pandemic. No, I don't think WWE is going to be unifying the world titles anytime soon. They just kind of split them up, and I wouldn't put it past them to unify them because they've done it several times. But right now, I don't think so. I don't know if Jeff Hardy, if you mean Jeff Hardy is an opponent for McIntyre, I don't know if I'd do Jeff. I don't know if I'd do him either. Somebody tougher. Jeff's old now. Yeah, I think McIntyre and Barrett could be a good match. Did they cross paths ever in WWE? Was McIntyre around? Have they seen each other before? I'm curious about that. Because at one time, Barrett was way higher up on the totem pole than McIntyre was, and times have certainly changed. And they were even going to do, like, remember back when they did that Wade Barrett, almost like a Raw Underground type of badass Fight Club type of guy? And it seems like they dropped that too. So they made a lot of mistakes with Barrett, with the Bad News Barrett stuff. I don't know why he'd want to get back in the ring in a WWE ring and have them just screw with him some more. But a match with McIntyre could be good. Returning Cena, I think we'll see Cena return, but I feel like that might be a WrestleMania thing. I don't know if he's going to be coming back in here and feuding with a babyface Drew for the title. I can see him coming back. I think he'll win another world title one day, but the timing has got to be right on that. Timing seems weird right now. Oh, they used to live together. Interesting. They were roomies? That's a sitcom right there. That would actually make a good sitcom, like on the WWE Network. You know how they did Legends House? But do like a sitcom with like an Odd Couple type of deal with two wrestlers that used to, like if Rock and Austin could be roommates for like 2 months in a house or something. They live in a little apartment like Laverne and Shirley, and they're both like broke, kind of down on their luck, and you know, they're constantly at odds with each other. Might be funny. It's kind of how they did the movie years ago with not that many years ago, just a few years ago with Stallone and Robert De Niro, where they were boxers. And it was, I forgot what the movie was called, but essentially it was Rocky versus Raging Bull. Even though they weren't those characters, they were still boxers in the movie, and they both had characteristics of those characters. And it was probably the closest thing we'd see to come to that. And it was kind of like that sort of thing. Never saw the movie. I just know it exists. but do something like that in sitcom form, you know, for a couple of wrestlers. That would be fun. All right, Anthony Russell, you're taking off. I am not far behind you. I got to get out of here as well. We've been streaming for about 2 hours now, and that's pretty good. Smash that thumbs up button if you don't mind on your way out, and keep a lookout Wednesday for my Bound for Glory 2010 review. That's going to be a good one, and that was a wacky-ass show. So I appreciate you guys hanging out tonight. Y'all be good, and thanks for hanging out again, and I'll catch you just in 2 days for the next review. See you soon. Peace.